Now this one is a special dedicated to all the bicycle man them man. Especially to a man, 7-man gang, Easy Papa and Devon. Love the nature of my car. Love the bicycle man, not the bicycle man, burn them in the bicycle man, not the bicycle man, come again, no bicycle man, not the bicycle man, burn them in the bicycle man, not the bicycle.
Traffic news on KWNK 97.7 FM from NevadaBike.org, powered by Clutch Creative. I'm Kai Plascon, right on. The Nevada Bicycle Coalition is in Washington, D.C. this week, meeting with Dina Titus, who is a member of the Congressional Bicycle Caucus. Who knew? And we're also meeting with Mark Amadei. Board member Scott Hall and other cyclists are telling them about the Bipartisan Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. Boy, that's a mouthful. It's vital to national and economic security, they're saying. It funds lots of transportation projects nationwide. It expires September 30th, so it needs to be renewed. So we're trying to convince Dina Titus and Mark Amadei to pass it. We're asking that the matching funds and provisions to protect pedestrians and cyclists continue, including automatic braking for new cars and adding truck side underguards so that trucks stop running over people with their back tires. A 10-year-old on their way to school didn't stop at a stop sign on their bike and ran into the side of a car that was sitting in the intersection. That kid's okay. Police are reminding parents to tell their kids to wear helmets and find the safest routes to school. They didn't say anything about why the car was in the intersection. In Las Vegas, a cyclist was hit and killed at Rancho and Sunset at 7:45 p.m. The driver stayed at the scene, but it's not clear how the accident happened. A Las Vegas hospital says it's seen 140 scooter accidents in the first 3 months of this year. 30% of them are kids. It's on pace to surpass the 250 accidents in all of 2025. The hospital says people need to wear helmets, but the statement didn't explain that we need our roads to be safer for the kind of transportation that people are choosing to use. The City of Reno is celebrating a 30% decline in crashes and no pedestrian fatalities since 2022 in downtown Reno. They're attributing it to the improvements in road design. We're going to talk to a City of Reno traffic engineer about that this week on Bike Life Radio. Join us at 5:30 on Sundays right here on KWNK 97.7 FM. Listen anywhere at KWNKradio.org. That's it for traffic news from NevadaBike.org. I'm Kai Plascon. Right on.
The walk light is on.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
So, all right. You're listening to KWNK 97.7 FM Bike Life Radio. And we're from the Nevada Bicycle Coalition. I'm Kai Plascon, right on. You know, one of the things that we do on Bike Life Radio is that we talk about pedestrians, all kinds of vulnerable road users, not just cyclists. And the Nevada Bicycle Coalition supports all vulnerable road users, anybody who's not driving a car and protected by a big, giant, heavy box, metal box or whatever, plastic box, whatever it happens to be. And in this case, we're at Court and Sierra Street, and we're going to talk about LPIs, leading pedestrian intervals, which are, that's a technical term. What does it mean? Well, we have David here, and he's with the City of Reno. I don't know your title, like an engineer or something, right?
Yeah, I'm the City Traffic Engineer in Public Works, City of Reno.
Yeah, so what is an LPI?
So an LPI, like you mentioned, is a leading pedestrian interval. And what it does is it allows the pedestrians to actually enter the intersection before the vehicles have a green light. This kind of establishes their presence, so any turning vehicles do not conflict with them as they attempt to make their movement. Now, the location that we're at today here, Sierra Court, we had a very specific issue here that led to this LPI being deployed. It's a one-way street, and so with that, as the light turns green, you have left-turning vehicles that do not have to yield to any other opposing vehicles. What ends up happening is there's usually some confusion between the pedestrians and the vehicles, and we've seen some conflicts.
Oh, huh. Yeah, because what it means is that the person's walking out into the intersection before the light turns green for the drivers. And so the way that works is now the pedestrian walks out there into the street and the driver can see him, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely.
And what do you think? Is it solving the problem?
I think that in some cases it's a great tool. It definitely establishes the pedestrian in that crosswalk, and so there's no confusion as far as what's happening. The area where we're a little hesitant to deploy these would be situations where we do not have talking push buttons. Visually impaired pedestrians typically will use a motorist, the cue of the car, to actually know when to cross. And so if that walk symbol is up and no one's moving, then the light turns green. A vehicle may not know that a visually impaired pedestrian is about to conflict with them.
Huh. I was just talking to Carrie Koski, the city engineer, about Libby Booth Elementary and murals that are painted on the street and candlesticks out there. And they were saying they're going to observe for a little while about whether it's safer or not. And you were just talking about the problem that existed here at Court and Sierra, and that you saw this problem. Do you guys go out and stand and watch, and then you're like, oh, this is happening, or how do you do that?
So we have a data-driven process where we'll take the crash data, say over the last 3 years. We'll find hotspots, we'll find intersections. We'll look for situations where maybe we have a lot of left turn crashes, and then we try to diagnose. And so usually that involves some field observation.
Yeah, I imagine somebody in dark glasses and a trench coat standing behind a column and watching, so that they wouldn't influence people. But it's not really like that, but a little bit like that to some extent.
That's pretty much it.
Oh, awesome. Wow, that's amazing. So that's one of the things that you're doing. Is this the only intersection where you've done it, or are there some others?
No, we have a handful of them around town. Usually they'll be located around a school. Some intersections don't benefit from the LPI just because they have channelized right turns or there's protected turns, so there's never that conflict. We just recently received a grant to upgrade all of the push buttons around the city of Reno so that they're actually of that talking style. So now we're going to look at deploying the LPI everywhere downtown.
Wow. So when you upgrade to this talking intersection thing, then you can also do the LPI at the same time.
Yes, that's correct.
And these don't look new, but I guess they have that talking thing, so they have that feature of the LPI. I noticed downtown today or yesterday or something when I was riding around that there's now yellow push button things that are bigger and slightly different. Are those new? Do you know by any chance?
The yellow ones, it's the newer version of the same push button that's up now. And so it's, similar in function, but it just better visibility. And so, those are any of those that you see are the new ones.
We're downtown Reno. We're at Court and Sierra. We're talking about leading pedestrian intervals where people can walk out into the intersection before the lights turn green for the drivers. And we're talking to David, a city traffic engineer, right? Yes. And with the City of Reno about that and other improvements downtown. One of the reasons why you did this, is my understanding, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that this is a pedestrian safety zone. And that means that you get higher fines if you speed through it or can commit some sort of crime in your car. So tell us a little bit about that. What is it?
Sure, yeah. So pedestrian safety zones were enacted by into NRS here about 15 years ago. City of Reno followed suit and established an ordinance that mirrored the state's. And what we did was we actually were the first agency to deploy a ped safety zone. We have 2 of them now. And we look at the crash data. We try to find high concentrations of crashes, and with that, there's some state rules that we have to follow. If we can check that box, then we can go out, deploy the signage. It's still kind of a work in progress, though. We're still working through some things. We haven't always seen them be as effective as we would like because people drive as fast as they naturally feel they can.
Yeah, and it takes enforcement, too.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a good partnership with RPD, and they do quite a bit of targeted enforcement here as well as on 4th Street. And so we're happy with that. And we're actually looking at deploying a 3rd zone now. We're just looking through the data to see what the best candidate will be.
Ah, interesting. Any thoughts on where those might be?
I imagine it's probably going to be somewhere downtown. Once we get onto higher speed roads like South Virginia, the thought of trying to slow someone down from 50 to 20, I don't know that that's safe for us to do. And so, the pedestrian activity is great. There's a lot of, it's a vibrant area. And so, I fully suspect that you'll see it downtown.
Yeah. We're talking to David, a city traffic engineer, and we are in downtown Reno. We're talking about pedestrian, bicycle safety, all kinds of safety. You're listening to KWNK 97.7 FM, Bike Life Radio. There's a lot of traffic here. One of the things that you said is that you're not they don't work as well as you'd like. What do you mean by that?
So I guess from a safety perspective, they're working out great. Our 4th Street Ped Safety Zone, we saw a reduction, 29% reduction in ped crashes.
Great.
Our Sierra Street, there's been a reduction, 25%. I think the thing to note, though, is that in each of those pedestrian safety zones, since they've been deployed, we've had 0 fatalities in either one.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. What other, besides the fines and these LPIs now that you're putting in, what other improvements have you done, would you say?
Well, the downtown area is, when it was originally designed, years and years ago, it was really with cars in mind. And we've really seen some friction pop up because we have so many different uses now downtown that it's important for us to try to create facilities that can kind of separate this traffic. And so right now, we have the biggest little bike network is the project, which is, I think, about to advertise construction this summer. And with that, it's just getting some bike facilities that are off of the roadway.
Some bike, say that again. There was a car went by. It was loud.
Okay. Just bicycle facilities that are outside of the travel area of cars.
All right. Yeah, that sounds great. So that's another improvement. Anything else that you've done over time in the past?
We work a lot with rapid rectangular flashing beacons. We've been deploying those quite a bit in the downtown area.
Rapid rectangular flashing beacons. What is that?
And so what it is there's a push button on the sign, on the pedestrian warning sign. You press it, and you have these beacons that blink, and it just brings awareness to the pedestrian that's waiting to cross the road.
Yeah, I used one of those this morning with my daughter when I walked her to school. She's 14 and she loves it when I walk her to school. And a new one was put in and we push the button and we go. But the sun was in this kid's eyes and he was going, probably above the speed limit and he couldn't see us. And everybody started honking in the street at Reno High School to try and get that kid to stop. He did not stop. He kept going. I had to stop my daughter from walking out in the street like she would have been hit. Those they didn't work in that case because the sun was in the kid's eyes. But are you seeing some success with those? Is that part of the reduction that you cited earlier in the number of pedestrian accidents and 0 fatalities?
Yeah, we definitely see a benefit from them. They like I said earlier, they definitely bring attention to the pedestrians standing on the side of the road. I think it's just incumbent upon us drivers to pay attention, and always be looking out for pedestrians.
All right. So we're talking to David, a city traffic engineer. I continue to get that right? Yeah. With the City of Reno, and we're talking about LPIs, leading pedestrian intervals, where pedestrians at Sierra and Court Street and in many parts of the city in the future will be able to walk out into the intersection before cars get the green light. And then also some flashing beacons and biggest little bike network as improvements. And that's led to some success in terms of cutting down on accidents and no fatalities since that started. About when did the pedestrian safety zone start?
So the pedestrian safety zone on 4th Street went in 2021, and then Sierra Street was, I believe, October 2022.
Are you able to? Were you here from the start of that? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I was here.
So when you put in the pedestrian safety zone, did you have difficulty kind of wrapping your head around the things to do? Did you have to brainstorm? We talked about how the city was built for cars, and so then that must have been a really tough challenge.
Yeah, it is a challenge because people drive as fast as they feel comfortable driving, and putting up extra signs and things like that. We can't always count on that as a good deterrent for speeding. Our first one was on 4th Street. Upon the deployment, we saw a good initial compliance because of all of the signage that was out there. But over time, we found that the addition of pavement markings also helped out as well.
What does that mean, pavement markings?
So pavement markings would be like the words that are on the street. A stop pavement marking, or in this case, Ped Safety Zone, 20 miles per hour. And so with that, we've seen some pretty good success.
And so was that the first one on 4th Street?
Yes. The first one was on 4th Street from University over to Record.
Wow. So did you have a celebration or anything when the numbers came out that you've reduced accidents and no fatalities or anything?
Yeah, we were actually very excited because, you always wonder if these things are going to work and how effective they'll be. And I'm a huge proponent on not deploying unnecessary signs. And so to see that we actually saw, good effectiveness, it makes us very happy.
We're talking to David, a city traffic engineer. We're at Court and Sierra Street. It's a very busy intersection. You're listening to KWNK 97.7 FM. You're a big proponent of not putting signs everywhere. Why is that?
I think that it reduces the effectiveness of the signs around them, and so I think that if we can be minimal, we get better. I think the drivers pay closer attention and they really comprehend what they're seeing in front of them.
Yeah, interesting. Any other techniques besides the biggest little bike network, the flashing signs? I'm thinking of lane narrowing or speed bumps. Are there any other things that you're looking at now?
Yeah, I mean, we commonly deploy bulb outs to narrow the road at intersections, reduce the crossing distance for pedestrians. We look at quite a few different just traffic calming treatments, speed humps, speed tables, raised crosswalks. The problem is we run into situations where you may have a bigger arterial that might have to carry some emergency vehicle apparatus, and so we just have to be sensitive in those situations. I guess if we're doing our planning right, though, we can generally keep the high pedestrian areas away from some of these arterials, and so traffic calming, especially downtown, is generally on the table.
Yeah, let's walk over here a little bit because there's a lot of traffic noise, and it might be a little easier to hear you if we have it blocked by a column here. We're at Court and Sierra Street. We're talking to David, who is a city traffic engineer, about improvements in the pedestrian safety zone and how it's reduced accidents by up to 30% and also 0 fatalities, which is a wonderful celebration for you all. You mentioned bulb outs, speed tables. I wanted to talk for a second about a speed table being something where the drivers have to come up to the level of the sidewalk as they reach an intersection or in mid block, and then. Is there anything else you wanted to add about those speed tables?
I think that we've particularly found them effective when used in conjunction with a crosswalk, because then you get the traffic calming effect, as well as I think it just brings more conspicuity to the actual crossing location itself. One other feature that I actually would like to mention, along with the speed tables, along with bulb outs, we're also looking at locations for pedestrian refuge islands now. And so that's going to be one of our kind of upcoming projects. We're looking through the data right now, trying to find these roadways that are of higher speed, wider roads, high traffic volumes, to see locations where we may have a mid-block crosswalk and we need to offer them a little bit of protection. I felt that was an important one to bring up as well.
All right. The speed tables I haven't seen yet anywhere. Have they been installed, or is it something you're thinking about doing?
Oh no, so we have some locations. We have locations on Lakeside. If you're kind of on the west side of the lake, we have 2 or 3 of them out there. Recently deployed one on Mojave Sky, and then is there one that's outside of City Hall as well on the mid-block?
Oh yeah, there is. I have seen that one. Yeah, that one's mid-block too. And are there any at intersections that you're aware of? And no.
Not that I'm aware of, and I mean, I don't know that the presence of an intersection would preclude us from doing something like that, but there may be some drainage considerations that are kind of outside of what I do, and so but that's something that we can always investigate. Are you aware of agencies that are currently deploying that, Kai?
No, not in the United States. In the United States, but not in Reno or in the Reno area. I haven't seen it down in Las Vegas. But I have seen it in Washington, D.C., and I've seen it in Guadalajara, I think. Okay. The bulb outs were, go ahead.
What about school zones?
Oh, in school zones, is that someplace you'd want to install a speed table?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if it's the I guess appropriate treatment for a crosswalk in a school zone, yeah, absolutely. The nice thing about school zones, though, is that if the school's located on a smaller street, not one that's going to be a primary emergency vehicle route, the neighborhood can actually submit a petition to the city to look at physical traffic calming, like a speed hump, which is actually far more aggressive than a speed table.
Interesting. A speed hump versus a speed table. What's the difference?
So the speed.
One's aggressive.
so they both rise up to about the same height, but one's done over 10 feet, whereas the other one's done 5. So yeah, so it's a lot. The speed humps are a lot more aggressive. You're not going to be happy if you drive over those at 40 miles an hour.
Yeah. I've dealt with bulb outs a lot. We're going to continue this conversation with David, the City of Reno traffic engineer. We're going to continue that conversation next week at 5:30 on Sunday, right here on KWNK 97.7 FM, Bike Life Radio. We'll see you then. I'm Kai Plascon. Right on. Traffic news on KWNK 97.7 FM from NevadaBike.org, hosted by Clutch Creative. I'm Kai Plascon. Right on. Want your bike checked out? Well, come to the Riverside Farmers Market on Sundays from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. in Reno. The Nevada Bicycle Coalition is doing free bike checks and some repair. Reminding drivers that they are in deadly vehicles is a priority in Carson City starting this week and through the end of the school year. Safe Routes to Schools is working with the State Department of Traffic Safety and Sheriff's Office on it. They're installing banners over streets to remind drivers to stop for pedestrians and that fines double in active school zones. Kids will get a reminder, too, about how to use crosswalks. USA Today has a list of the top 10 rides in the United States. A Nevada ride made the list. Here's a hint. It has a lake in it. No, not Lake Mead or Pyramid Lake. You guessed it, Lake Tahoe. The ride around the lake was ranked 6th in the nation. Ely, Nevada made this year's list of top mountain bike destinations from the International Mountain Bike Association. The IMBA says Ely has a commitment to outdoor recreation and trails. The designation could help the town get more funding. A new e-bike law is in effect in Utah. Kids 8 to 15 years old can use any class of e-bike with adult supervision, or alone if they have a safety certificate. They can't drive e-motorcycles, though, until they're 16 and get a motorcycle license. The Nevada legislature is considering similar e-bike laws. Las Vegas and Reno have free community rides every Wednesday around sunset. In Reno, you go to Believe Plaza. In Las Vegas, it's in the Arts District at First and Gas. That's it for traffic news on Bike Life Radio. Join us at 5:30 on Sundays, right here on KWNK 97.7 FM. Listen anywhere at KWNKradio.org. I'm Kai Plascon. Ride on. This week on Bike Life Radio, we continue our conversation with a City of Reno traffic engineer who's trying to make downtown Reno safer and is having some success. But our first guest is a UNR journalism student who is doing a story on bicycle and pedestrian safety. She says she feels unsafe walking around. You listen to Bike Life Radio, KWNK 97.7 FM. We're in downtown Reno. Talking to a student this hour about pedestrian safety, and she actually invited me to be interviewed down here about pedestrian safety. Bike Life Radio is from the Nevada Bicycle Coalition. I'm Kai Plascon. Right on. And what's your name?
I'm Bethany Laszlo.
Bethany Laszlo, and you're at UNR, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And so, what are you studying at UNR?
I'm studying journalism. I'm specifically news and broadcasting and public relations and advertising.
Oh. And so you were interested in talking about pedestrian safety. Tell us why.
So in the past year, there's been a 33% increase in fatalities, and it's always just a big thing that's going on in any community, and I just wanted to get the word out.
And so who else have you interviewed so far? Anybody?
No, just you. You're the first
Just me.
one. Yeah.
I'm the first one? Yay. Wow. What do you feel like when you're walking around Reno?
A little nervous and scared, anything could happen, but it is fun. I like the city, and it sometimes feels walkable. Sometimes I gotta move out of the way or go somewhere else.
Where are you from?
I live in Sparks.
You live in Sparks, so you grew up in Sparks.
Yes.
Wow. Oh, that's cool. And so when you are walking around in Sparks, I guess that it's kind of like you grew up in this world and this kind of pedestrian environment, and you feel somewhat unsafe, right? You were saying, and so what do you think should be done?
I think definitely more crosswalks and lights for the crosswalks, buttons should be implemented, sidewalks, and maybe lower speed limits or stuff like that.
Yeah. sidewalks would be nice, huh?
Yeah, there's a lot of spots in Sparks that don't have sidewalks. On like Sparks Boulevard doesn't have a sidewalk on like half of it. Yeah.
Is that confusing to you? Like, are you wondering like why there's no sidewalk?
Yeah, there's definitely like space for the sidewalk. They could add one if they wanted to, so I just don't know why they wouldn't.
Yeah. And so what does that say to you about local government if they're not thinking about pedestrians?
That maybe they think other things are more important than the lives of pedestrians. Like we were talking about, like drivers think they're more important than like anything. So.
Yeah. And so you've been to other cities and seen their cities. Do they have sidewalks?
Yeah, they all have sidewalks.
And what about UNR? So now you're at UNR, and it's very dense. Do you consider UNR to be walkable?
Yeah, definitely the campus. It's like kind of a long walk going from like side to side. And the like Virginia Street's kind of busy, but it's got sidewalks. It's got lots of crosswalks that I think are safe for the students.
One of the things that the Truckee Meadows Bicycle Alliance did a few years ago is bring in Bird, those scooters. Yeah, and so we were responsible for connecting the city with Bird, and then that ultimately led to Bird scooters being in the city. And at first they weren't allowed up at UNR, but I haven't been up there in a while, but I hear they're everywhere up there.
Yeah, they're everywhere. You'll just be walking on campus and they're zooming right past you. It's a little scary right there, yeah, because you don't hear them coming up behind you, but they're like good about going around you and stuff. I know there was like some issues with like you're not allowed to bring them into buildings, so you have to leave them outside. They get stolen sometimes, but a lot of people have just started buying their own like motor scooters and just bringing those and like bike locks for them.
Yeah. Have you thought about getting one?
I've not. I like just prefer to walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have you ridden one?
I have not ridden one.
You've never ridden one?
No.
Yeah, my daughter's at UNR right now, and she drives her car, and then she has to park far away, and then she has to walk. Yeah. And but she hasn't talked to me about trying to use the scooters. But I hear that they're everywhere up there. In general, do you feel that they're dangerous for pedestrians? I mean, they make pedestrians feel unsafe, you're saying, right?
Yeah, the way they just like kind of zoom by you, like they're good about going around, but they don't like slow down or anything. They'll just like zoom right past you. So if you like are like walking, like say I'm like walking straight and there's like a scooter going by and I like turn to go left, they might hit me because they're not paying too close attention. Yeah. We're
talking to Beth Laszlo. She's a journalism student at UNR, a native of Sparks, and she's doing a story on pedestrian safety. There was a 33% increase last year in pedestrian deaths, and so she's decided to do one of her school projects on that. Beth, you talked a little bit about some of the solutions. Do you have a walking story? You talked about how you walk in Sparks and there's no sidewalks. Do you have a walking or a biking story that you would like to share?
I don't know. I used to, like in middle school and high school before I had my license, I would longboard to Legends Mall, like on Sparks or through like the marina area, and I felt like pretty safe during that. Not so much on Sparks because it's super busy and everyone's speeding on there and half of it doesn't have a sidewalk, but it wasn't as bad as I think it is in Reno.
Yeah. So when you would longboard, did you crash?
I've crashed a couple times, yeah. Like just falling off.
And you don't do it anymore?
No, I got out of the habit.
Well, thank you for being on Bike Life Radio. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, you're listening to Bike Life Radio, KWNK 97.7 FM from the Nevada Bicycle Coalition. That was Bethany Laszlo, a UNR student who is doing a story on bike and pedestrian safety. She says she doesn't feel very safe walking around here. Next on Bike Life Radio, we're going to continue our conversation with David, a City of Reno traffic engineer, about improving bike and pedestrian safety in downtown Reno. They have reduced crashes 30% and have had no fatalities. Here's the rest of our chat from last week. Cyclist. You're listening to KWNK 97.7 FM Bike Life Radio. I need to remind you of that. And we're talking to David, who's a traffic engineer with the City of Reno. At Court and Sierra Street, we're talking about pedestrian and cyclist safety and improvements down here. Bulb outs is one of them, and that's where the sidewalk kind of bulbs out into the intersection as protection for the cyclists. It reduces the distance that they have to walk between protected areas. And in some cases, I've seen the bulb outs come out, and then that's forced a cyclist who may either be in a bike lane or not in a bike lane to then go out in traffic to get around the bulb out. And I saw today when I was on Vine and 4th that you've made a cut in the bulb out for the cyclist to be able to ride up into the bulb out and not have to ride out into traffic, which is a wonderful solution that I hadn't thought of before. And my thought process before was like, wow, to complain about this, they'd have to tear the whole thing out. But it's a solution. And so you guys thought that through and came up with it. Can you talk about where you get these ideas for things like leading pedestrian intervals, bulb out, speed tables? Where does that come from?
Yeah, I mean, we rely heavily on the information that we receive from the Federal Highway Administration as far as emerging technology, some of the proven countermeasures. I think that we stay in tune with best practices. I think that you attend conferences, you see things that are being done in other states and cities, and we look for the appropriate fit here. For example, there was a conference here 2 years ago up in Big Sky, Montana, ITE conference. Attended the conference there and actually saw that some of the cities now are deploying signs with LED borders that can be activated when there's a pedestrian to let turning vehicles know pedestrian and roadway. And at the same time, we can also prohibit the turning movement from even going at the same time as the ped. And so it's a very powerful thing. And then, unfortunately, we had a pedestrian crash here shortly after that conference. And, having attended, it was like, okay, well, this is something maybe we can try. And we've tried it. And so far, it's been good.
Huh. Oh, that's pretty neat. Where do you have it?
Oh, it's at the intersection of California at Virginia.
California and Virginia. And it says pedestrian and roadway somewhere.
Yes.
Huh.
Yep.
Huh.
Yeah. And so and it kind of blinks up, and and the thing is hopefully the driver's always going to be paying attention, and we shouldn't have to use these devices. But anything that we can apply that will possibly bring attention to the pedestrian and prevent a crash, it's good.
Huh. I'm going to have to go over and look at that. Maybe because I'm a cyclist and a pedestrian and not a driver as much, I haven't seen it. And so,
Yeah. So if you are actually on the west leg of the intersection, if you're on California and you're looking right across the street at the restaurant, look to your left and up on the signal, and you'll see the sign that says turning vehicles yield to peds, and you'll see it flashing.
All right, neat. How does it feel when you put in one of these new things?
I most of my experience was in design before this, and you never really got to go out and look at the operations of things and see, see the benefits of the things that you're doing. And so it's very exciting in this job in traffic to be able to deploy something like that and see it assist motorists and reduce these crashes and make people just feel more secure and comfortable using the road.
Yeah, like they're not going to die.
Yeah.
We're talking to David. He's a city traffic engineer with the City of Reno, and we're at Court and Sierra, and we're talking about pedestrian and bicycle safety improvements in downtown Reno. One of my favorite things that I saw, it's been hard for me to find ever since, is automatic speed bumps, ones that detect the speed of the driver, and if they're going above the speed limit, it puts up a speed bump. And then so it's like a surprise speed bump. Have you seen that?
I have not. I did at one point see a demonstration of a system that was similar to that. The issue that we would have with that in this area is with the brine and everything on the road from snowplow operations. Those things over time, they kind of muck up and then they don't operate as well. But it's definitely a very interesting strategy. I mean, I guess I would be a little nervous about someone being surprised by the speed bump and possibly driving off the road. But if they're effective, if they work, they work,
Yeah, that's a really good point. In our area where things can get gummed up, you have to think about how long this stuff is going to last, too, and whether it, makes sense for taxpayers, I guess, right?
Yeah, and at the same time, we would hate for something that malfunctions and then operates halfway and creates more of a hazard. And so, we just want to kind of look every, kind of make sure that we have our eyes on everything, and we want to be good like stewards, of the public trust here, and make sure that we're not going to put something out there that's not going to be an efficient use of their money.
Yeah, and that's why pilot projects and testing are important, right? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we've run several pilot projects through the City of Reno for traffic safety. First one I'm thinking of is the biggest little bike network with the conversions that were made on Virginia Street. We've also looked at some different dynamic horizontal curve signage with some blinky lights that pick up with the radar. We've been getting into using pedestrian hybrid beacons. And so,
what's a pedestrian hybrid beacon?
So a pedestrian hybrid beacon is very similar to a traffic signal, but it remains dark most of the time until that pedestrian pushes the button, at which point it goes to yellow and then goes to red, gives the pedestrian the time to get into the crosswalk, and then after that pedestrian is in the crosswalk, it starts flashing red. And so what that does is it allows vehicles to proceed once the pedestrian has cleared the crosswalk. It's a little bit more efficient than a traffic signal, and the warrants to install one, the legal warrants, it's not as hard for us to be able to meet that warrant.
Yeah.
So it's a good intermediate step, between RRFB and traffic signal.
Yeah. We're talking to David, city traffic engineer with City of Reno. We're at Court and Sierra Street. We're talking about improvements to pedestrian and bicycle safety in the area. One of the things that strikes me periodically that I like to mention here and there, hoping that it might might make people think a little bit, is that when people are waiting to walk across the street, and I was surprised that some of the crosswalks, the wait time is only 1.5 minutes, and it must seem like forever for some people, and that as pedestrians we don't have a lot of patience, and then as drivers we want to get everywhere as quickly as possible, and so there's this kind of theme of low patience that can potentially lead to all these accidents, and that's a cultural problem, right? And then you have to design the roads to deal with this cultural problem of patience, I guess, among humans.
Yeah, and it's interesting. There's quite a bit of research on that, and we see that the longer that a pedestrian has to wait, each 10 seconds can be as much as a 20% chance in them actually violating the signal and crossing early. And so we try to make things as snappy as possible. We have different traffic signal timing parameters that we can use to try to serve the peds faster, even possibly take the signal out of the coordination with other signals in order to serve a pedestrian just a little bit sooner.
David with the City of Reno Traffic Engineering. You're listening to KWNK 97.7 FM Bike Life Radio. One of the things that we do on Bike Life Radio is we tell a personal story of whether you're either riding a bike or you're walking or you were driving, anything that's related to a vulnerable road user. Do you have a story you'd like to share, a personal one?
Oh gosh, can we come back to that?
Sure, we can. David's responsible for a lot of these improvements in downtown, the pedestrian safety zones, where fines are higher in downtown Reno if you speed or break traffic laws, to try and protect pedestrians and vulnerable road users. Did you have a thought now?
Okay. Yeah, I was just thinking, and this isn't necessarily related as much to automobile safety with pedestrians, but for a few years I decided to give up a car, and I would walk, take the bus everywhere.
Here in Reno?
Yeah, here in Reno. And it was in 2006, and we had quite a snow year that year. And I was never aware of exactly what pedestrians have to deal with when there's no shoveling or snow removal, and you're going up to your knees, and it's cold outside, and definitely I guess kind of gave me new perspective with some of the challenges. And that may not be directly related to safety devices, but at the same time it's important for us to just consideration.
It gave you a perspective. So did you have a takeaway from that, or was there one in particular, or were you like, this is hard?
I need to get my car back.
My stepdad, he was in the state engineering in Oregon when they first passed the law to have some percentage of gas taxes going towards bicycle and pedestrian stuff. So he sold his car and started riding his bike everywhere, and learned a whole lot that he figured, wow, I guess I better learn what cyclists need. So he started riding his bike. He ended up later on in life riding his bike all the way around the world with my mom, for an entire year. So he's got lots of stories. There's a book on it called 4 Legs, 2 Wheels. But anyway, I digress. We're talking to David, who is with the City of Reno Traffic Engineering, and he's at Court and Sierra. I guess we're both here, and we're talking about improvements to downtown Reno to help pedestrian safety. Is there anything you'd like to add?
I guess one thing that I would like to add is that we are working with the university right now to look at how our pedestrian safety zones operate, looking at possible novel deployments to see how we can make them more effective. Just bring more awareness to the fact that you're in an area with increased conflict and a safety record that may not be what you would like to see. I mean, we don't want to ever see any crashes anywhere, but when you see them concentrated, it's a major cause for concern.
Have they said anything so far? Like, oh, think about this or try that?
We've just initiated the project. Right now they're going through and looking at some different novel pavement marking modifications that can be performed to slow vehicles down, as well as just different things that can be added to signs just to make them easier to see. Yeah. And with that, we're going to look at a survey component where we can actually, talk to road users that are using the ped safety zone. And my hope is that maybe through your show that we can maybe kind of propagate that outward to get more just more reactions.
Yeah. One of the things talking about pavement markings that I've really liked is the white line that goes down the side of the road. I've seen it done in a zigzag way, and when I've come across that as a driver, I've been like, oh my God, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to zigzag here in the road or what? But it has slowed me down because I just wasn't sure what was going on. And so a lot of some of these new things may create some sort of confusion among drivers, but that causes them often to slow down, right?
Absolutely. I mean, as long as I guess the confusion is productive, I don't think it's not the end of the world. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned the zigzagging lines. That's one of the things that we're looking at, and then we also have to look at the feasibility of the deployment. Is it something that our paint trucks can actually place, or how do we go about doing that? Yeah. What do the feds have to say about it? Is it something that you risk losing funding over? Yeah. And so we want to make sure we look at it from all sides before deployment. But that's definitely one of the strategies we're looking into.
Yeah. David with the City of Reno, and he's traffic engineer. We're at Court and Sierra. We're talking about pedestrian safety improvements. To talk about the biggest little bike network for just a moment and paint, I had heard that all of Virginia Street in some section may be painted green. Is that? Are you able to talk about that, David, or is that something that you're not really ready to talk about yet?
I'm a little bit less familiar with the project, but yeah, you're right. The green pavement markings will be deployed. And with that, it's just important to make sure that when you're going to use that much material, that we just have the friction course that's available, because when it gets wet, it's definitely a little bit more unsafe. But it definitely highlights the conflict points, and we like using it.
Yeah. I wonder how that might psychologically change people, if they might be like, wow, I feel good, the road is not black, it's green, and now I'm happy, and we're all here together having a good time and taking our time.
Green's my favorite color.
Yeah. All right, David with the City of Reno Traffic Engineering, talking to us at Court and Sierra about the Pedestrian Safety Zone and all of the improvements down here. Congratulations on your success. Can you go over those success metrics again really quickly?
And so I'm sorry,
yeah.
Kai.
No, that's okay.
So as far as the metrics, are we talking about crash reduction? Or
yeah, crash reduction.
Okay. And so the metrics that we look at when it comes to analyzing our crash data is we want to look at crashes, we want to look at fatalities, we want to see where the injuries are. We also want to see where we have a particular type of crash that's easier to correct. So left turn crashes, generally, we can control those. If we find locations that have a left turn crash problem, it's a simple diagnosis. And so we look at it by crash type, we can look at it by vehicle factors. If we have a situation where we see many crashes where a vehicle is failing to yield, why are they failing to yield? Is it they can't see the device? Is there some kind of confusion that's creating that? And so really, we look at many different aspects of safety data and making these decisions.
But you said that you've reduced crashes by 30% or something like that, right?
Yes, in the pedestrian safety zones, yes. Yeah, so what we do is we do a before and after analysis. In this case, we use 3 years of before data, 3 years of after data at both locations, pre-post deployment. As we continue deploying these, I think that we're also going to want to start looking closer at speeds as well, because I don't think that, when we deployed the first one, I didn't have the presence of mind to go out there and measure the speed beforehand. So I want to make sure with this third one that, it's done right. We have all of the data, speeds, crashes. We want to understand user perceptions. Those are going to be the big three for me.
All right, excellent. I really appreciate you being on Bike Life Radio. We're going to let this person in the car with lots of loud music go by before we close out the show. He wants to share music with everyone. If there was one thing that you would like drivers to do differently overall, what would you say it is?
I just maybe be mindful of the fact that you're in a machine that can kill someone.
Wow. Yeah, that is something really important to remember. You're listening to Bike Life Radio, KWNK 97.7 FM. We're talking to David in downtown Reno at Court and Sierra Street about the Pedestrian Safety Zone and how there's higher fines down here. They think about putting in speed tables. They're talking about bulb outs and flashy lights to help pedestrians across the road and have reduced accidents in downtown Reno by 30%. When did that start? You said 2022, right? Is when?
Yeah, our first one was deployed.
There he goes.
Yeah, so the first one was deployed in the spring of 2021, and then the second one we actually put out in October of 2022. So the first one being 4th Street, second one being Sierra Street.
All right. Are you happy being a traffic engineer?
I think it's the best job on the planet.
Really? Why?
I think that, you get to really see, you get to impact, I think, the people that are around you, the people that live here and visit here. You get to improve safety, and some of these things, I mean, it's a pretty simple deployment, but you get to really see the effects. And so, like I said, my previous career was more related to traffic design and things like that. And you don't get that same sense of accomplishment, I believe. I think that the operations is where it's at.
All right. We've been talking to David, who is a city traffic engineer with the City of Reno. We're at Court and Sierra Street. You can hear all the traffic in the background. We've been talking about pedestrian safety zones. Thank you for being on Bike Life Radio.
Thank you very much, Kai.
You've been listening to Bike Life Radio, KWNK 97.7 FM from the Nevada Bicycle Coalition. I'm Kai Plascon. Right on. All right, that was it.
Ain't gonna lose control if you don't ride your bicycle, man. Bicycle man is a bicycle 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 man.